Your brain is not fixed. It is not a static structure that degrades over time as you age. It is a living structure that can grow new cells, form new connections, and repair itself at any age. The protein responsible for that process has a name, and most people have never heard of it. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. It is a protein, a neurotrophin, produced primarily in the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, and the cerebral cortex of your brain. Its job is to keep your neurons alive, help them grow, and strengthen the connections between them. Without them, your synapses are going to weaken, your neurons are going to shrink. The brain regions responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation will begin to degrade. Research published in the Archives of Medical Science describes BDNF as essential for the survival and maintenance of neurons in the central and peripheral nervous system and confirms that it plays a central role in long-term potentiation, the cellular mechanism by which memories are formed and retained. This is crucial for learning. Think of it this way: if neurons are your hardware, BDNF is the maintenance team, the construction crew, and the electrician combined. It builds new connections, reinforces the ones that are already working, and clears out the ones that have deteriorated and are no longer needed. Low levels of BDNF are consistently associated with depression, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and age-related cognitive decline. It is one of the most important biomarkers of brain health that almost nobody is recognizing. Higher BDNF is going to produce three measurable categories of improvement, each supported by peer-reviewed evidence. First is going to be neuroplasticity. BDNF binds to a receptor called TRKB on the surface of neurons and triggers gene expression that promotes dendritic growth, synaptogenesis, and long-term potentiation. This is the biological process by which your brain physically rewires itself in response to new learning and experience. Higher BDNF means a more plastic, more adaptable brain. This is crucial if you are in school trying to learn. Second is going to be memory and cognition. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory structure, is one of the regions with the highest BDNF concentration. Research confirms that BDNF is critical for hippocampal long-term potentiation and that its reduction is directly associated with impaired memory performance. Conversely, higher BDNF is associated with improved learning speed, working memory capacity, and retention. Third, mood regulation and protection against depression. A meta-analytic review published in the Journal of Psychiatric Research confirmed that exercise-induced increases in BDNF are associated with improvements in mood. And the neurotrophin hypothesis of depression specifically identifies low BDNF as one of the core biological mechanisms underlying depressive behaviors. Patients with major depression have much lower measurable levels of serum BDNF than healthy individuals. Treatments that raise BDNF, including exercise and antidepressant medications, correlate with symptomatic improvement. In short, more BDNF means a brain that learns faster, remembers better, and resists the neurochemical conditions that produce depression. Exercise is the single most studied and proven method of increasing BDNF in your body, and the mechanism has now been identified at the molecular level. A meta-analysis published in the European Journal of Neuroscience pooling data from multiple randomized control trials confirmed that a single session of aerobic exercise produces a significant increase in blood concentration of BDNF in healthy adults. The effect is acute, it occurs within the session itself. But longer-term training produces an even more important effect. A separate meta-analytic review published in the Journal of Psychiatric Research found that regular exercise training increases resting BDNF concentrations, meaning your base level is going to rise over time with consistent training. Your brain becomes structurally richer as a direct consequence of your exercise habit. The molecular mechanism was identified in a landmark paper published in eLife. Researchers found that exercise induces the accumulation of a ketone body called beta-hydroxybutyrate in the hippocampus. This ketone body acts as an inhibitor of class 1 histone deacyltases, enzymes that normally suppress BDNF gene expression. By inhibiting those enzymes, beta-hydroxybutyrate allows the BDNF gene to be expressed more freely, increasing BDNF protein production in exactly the brain regions where it's going to matter the most. This is not a vague correlation between movement and mood. It is a specific, identified biochemical pathway. Exercise produces beta-hydroxybutyrate, which will lead to histone deacyltase inhibition, which will lead to BDNF gene expression, which will lead to hippocampal BDNF protein. The type of exercise matters. Aerobic exercise, sustained cardiovascular work, produces the most consistent and replicated acute BDNF increases. Resistance training produces significant acute increases as well, though the resting baseline effect is more pronounced with aerobic training. Exercise is the most powerful lever, but it's not the only one. Sleep. BDNF synthesis is highest during slow wave sleep, the same stage where memory consolidation occurs, another critical point for learning. Research confirms that chronic sleep restriction reduces BDNF levels measurably, while deep, uninterrupted sleep supports its production. This is another reason sleep deprivation is neurologically costly. It cuts off one of your brain's primary repair mechanisms. Sunlight, serotonin synthesis, stimulated by morning sunlight exposure, is going to positively regulate BDNF. Studies show that BDNF levels correlate with average daily sunlight hours and are measurably lower in winter months, a finding that parallels the seasonal pattern of depression. Getting outside in the morning is not just a mood intervention, it is a BDNF intervention. Cold exposure. Cold water immersion activates the sympathetic nervous system and triggers norepinephrine release, a catecholamine that has been shown to upregulate BDNF expression. The stress response pathway activated by cold is distinct from the ketone-mediated pathway of exercise, but the downstream outcome is shared, higher BDNF production. Caloric challenge. Both caloric restriction and intermittent fasting trigger BDNF gene expression through a similar ketone-mediated mechanism as exercise, SIRT1 activation and beta-hydroxybutyrate production. Research in eLife identified beta-hydroxybutyrate specifically as the molecular bridge between metabolic challenge and BDNF expression. It is the same molecule, the same pathway. Fasting and exercise are going to activate it through different routes. The common thread across all of these interventions is biological stress, acute, manageable, and recovered from. Exercise, cold, fasting, and sleep deprivation recovery all challenge your physiology in ways that upregulate BDNF as part of the adaptive response. Your brain grows stronger in response to controlled demand. The pharmaceutical industry has spent decades trying to develop drugs that raise BDNF because the clinical evidence for its role in depression, neurodegeneration, and cognitive decline is so strong. Most of those drugs have failed or produced marginal results. What has not failed is exercise. The meta-analytic evidence is consistent and replicated across hundreds and hundreds of trials. Aerobic exercise raises acute BDNF levels after a single session, and chronic training raises the resting baseline levels over time. And unlike a drug, the mechanism of exercise-induced BDNF, the beta-hydroxybutyrate pathway identified in eLife, is endogenous. It is built into your biology. It has been selected for across millions of years of evolutionary history. Your body was designed to respond to physical demand by making your brain more resilient. This is what is happening every time you train, not just muscle remodeling, not just weight loss, not just cardiovascular adaptation. Your hippocampus is producing more of the protein responsible for its own growth. This is not wellness culture, this is molecular neuroscience. Every session in the gym is its own BDNF event. Every session you skipped is a missed opportunity to make your brain more neuroplastic and making yourself more capable of learning and retaining information.